All right, guys, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Bob.
All right, now let's see if I can share my screen. Look at that. I think it's going to let me do this time.
Boom. Yes.
How about that?
All right.
I'd rather be lucky than good. Okay. So let me now go into presentation mode. And Terry, I'm going to say time to mute everybody but me and Tyler and John. And you?
Okay, you're the host. So
Oh, I'm back to being the host
yeah, you're
again,
back
am
to
I?
being the host.
All right. Well, then that means I got to mute everybody.
Unless
Mute.
you want me to do it, I'd be happy to.
Well, I guess I would rather you, because if anybody
Okay.
comes in while I'm talking, I don't want to be the one to have to deal with that.
There you go. I got
All
it.
right. All right. You're going to mute everybody but yourself and me and Tyler and John. Oh, I guess I have to unmute myself. Huh?
Yeah, he muted everybody, and then you have to unmute yourselves.
Yeah, you
Roger,
have to
understood.
unmute yourself. What I can do is I can ask people to unmute, but I can't unmute them.
Oh, okay. All right.
Right.
Things have definitely changed on Zoom. All right. Okay. Let's get started. I'm going to talk about the Free-moN event at the Evanston Machine Shop in Evanston, Wyoming. It was quite a trip, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. As soon as I figure out how to move my slides.
Yeah, I think you're on the last slide.
Oh, the end. You're right.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
got to start at the
Yeah, you
top.
got to start at the top. The end was where I was at because I was practicing. All right, let's try this again. The end slide looks a little too much like the first slide. All right. The Evanston Machine Shop Free-moN event in Evanston, Wyoming last month, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Here's our agenda. These are the topics we're going to cover. We'll do a quick introduction. Since the topic is about Free-mo, we're going to talk about Free-moN. Then we're going to there'll be the bulk of the presentation will be the journey and the destination. And then once we're done with that, we will switch to the layout tour, and we have a tour of John's module and my modules. So, and then we will conclude. So, all right, introduction. Okay, so I think it's important to set expectations. This clinic is basically traveler's tales. It's not a how-to clinic. It's not exactly a slideshow, although we're going to look at pictures. It isn't going to make you a better modeler. Well, it might, but that depends. Hopefully it'll inspire you to try something new.
And hopefully it'll inspire you to try Free-moN.
Then there's that. Yes, exactly.
We can all be bi-gaugeable.
Yes, and you ought to know. We even have a slide about that topic. So, okay, what this clinic is it's a story about an amazing journey that three friends took this summer. Myself, Tyler, and John. And how we encouraged and helped each other to achieve more than we thought we could. And the great time we had along the way. And oh, by the way, it involved model trains. How cool is that, right? So that's to set expectations. Here are the characters, and they are characters. Three friends: John, also known as Oak, Tyler, John's son, and myself, Bob. And we have known each other for going on 20 years. We met at the regional convention in Plymouth in 2002. We, however, did not meet at the prototype tour where Tyler photobombed my picture of the steel coil car and the trackmobile with his tricorder in tow there. And we actually met the next day at a layout tour. And that's kind of a fun story too. We were walking in together and, started talking as we were walking in the door. And we went downstairs to the layout, and it was actually Tom Lenzian's O-scale layout. And he was basically handing people throttle and saying, go operate on my railroad, and handing a deck of, car cards and saying, go do the work. Well, I'd never operated before, and I'd never switched before, and I had no idea what I was doing. So of course, because I was the adult, Tom handed the throttle to me. So I handed the card deck to Tyler, and I said, figure out what we're doing. And then and we proceeded to go to the first stop, and Tyler is trying to tell me what to do, and it goes on for a little while, and finally I just hand the throttle to him and start talking to John, and let Tyler switch because I was frustrating him. So that was how Tyler and I operated for the first time. So that was a good time, and we've been friends ever since. And I guess if I tap that, it works too. How about that? Learn something new. Okay, so with that introduction, I think we'll head into this Free-moN topic. What is this all about? Free-moN, what's that? Well, first of all, it's not Free-moN, it's Free-moN, as in N-scale. And I love this quote. I lifted this quote, the first quote there, off of the Free-moN history page on their website. Why are we running in a circle? The prototype does not go in a circle. It goes point to point. And that's a really important quote when you're looking at Free-moN, because the whole idea behind Free-moN, and it's Free-moN, the original, Free-moN, and Free-moN. That's the line from the original variation to where we are now with N-scale. And in all of these, the idea is to define the interface between modules and define as little as necessary about the interior of the module, thus giving the freedom to model whatever it is the modeler wants to do. And I think, actually, quite honestly, it's not surprising that this originated in Europe, where they don't necessarily have large rooms there or basements that they can dedicate to a layout. The prototypes they're modeling tend to be more curvy than ours, and so having the flexibility to model prototype scenes in a way that you can't with the more traditional module standards, like the NMRHO and the N-track standard, was something that was very appealing. And so Free-moN, which stands for Friendship of European Railway Modelers, right? That originated in 1981, which I either didn't know before now when I did the research for this clinic, or I'd forgotten it. But so they're basically on 40 years that they've been doing this. Meanwhile, in 1995, some of the HO guys in California, one of which the quote up at the top is attributed to, decided that they didn't want to do circle burning anymore, and they wanted something different. They discovered Free-moN, the European variant of Free-moN, and they created, of course, a new variant for the US, and changed the name slightly to Free-moN, which is an indication of the freedom to model the prototype scenes that you want to model. And then, inspired by the HO group, and it wasn't just, hey, I saw him on the internet. The guy who started Free-moN started by modeling Free-moN HO modules with the guys who started Free-moN in the US. So this was a direct line between the HO group that started the HO Free-moN in the US and the N-scale Feemo. And that was in 2002. And the goal there was to raise the bar on what could be done with N-scale modular railroading. And I put in the links to the history on both of the Free-moN and the Free-moN web pages, and they're an interesting read. So, you know, I highly recommend that. All right. And from there, with the freedom comes some responsibility. And it involves these things that you must do. These are highlights from the standard. It isn't the complete standard, but these are the big hitters. So I wanted to include them on a slide. And since you guys won't read the bullets, you'll just be looking at the picture anyway. I put the picture in. The end plate is the important part. It's 6 inches tall. Minimum is 12 inches wide at the end plate. You can go bigger, you can't go smaller. All 4 of my modules have a 12-inch wide end plate. That is a good number when you're looking at, you know, 4x8 sheets of material and you're going to be cutting them up. Another good number, and I think actually quite honestly is the sweet spot, is 16 inches wide. Although the drawing here on the screen shows 24-inch, and that's considered the quote nominal size, but it's not a required size. You can go as small as 12 inches, you can go bigger, but you need to go at least 12. So track, code 55 nickel silver rail, prototype tie spacing. That doesn't leave you with a lot of choices. Atlas code 55 in N-scale is one for sure. Tyler, there may be others, I'm sure, but that's the one I've been using. Minimum radius, 22 inches, 6 inches between reverse curves. Straight, square, and level at the end of the module for 4 inches. That's actually a little more than is necessary given the 6-inch reverse curve requirement, but that's what the standard says right now. Track, road bed, and ballast extend to the end of the module. This was a big one, and it figured into the updates of the modules, that the existing modules we already had, because we followed a standard that was, at the time we built the modules, to have a 1-inch setback of the rails, but not the roadbed ties or ballast. Minimum height from the floor at the module end is 50 inches. So again, that's at the module end, not within the module, although there's actually a conflicting requirement in the standard there, which hopefully we can get corrected. And then maximum height at the module end is 62 inches. Maximum grade is 2.0%. On the electrical, 12 gauge wire for the main line and the accessory bus, and they're terminated with Anderson power pole connectors. The main bus and the accessory bus have different arrangements of the power pole connectors in the hope that they don't get misconnected. 12 gauge might seem like overkill for N-scale, but when you factor in the insertion losses from the power pole connectors and how many connectors you might have on a bus connected to one booster, it's not as unreasonable as it seems. I know I used 14 gauge for my layout in the basement, but then again, that doesn't have all the brakes in the bus that you would have in a modular setup. And finally, cosmetic wise, the fascia must fully cover the side of the module. Seems obvious, but it needs to be said. And the finish is black. Strictly speaking, it's black semi-gloss or gloss. My modules are flat black, don't tell anyone. And the top edge of the fascia must follow the contour of the scenery, which is easier if your scenery is flat, but if it's not, then you got to do some work. All right. So that's the Free-moN standard. Those are the highlights of the Free-moN standard, raising the bar for N-scale. All right, now we're on to the journey. And as Free-moN was getting started in California, this guy, John Young, another John, who is known to be a serial modular layout builder. And I would assume he wouldn't dispute that, although he's probably muted right now, so he can't. Was instigating a project, and I had completely forgotten about this. I couldn't remember how we started the Plymouth sub, but thankfully Tyler remembered, so we were able to put it in. John, we were all at the 2005 convention in Cincinnati, and we were sitting around in the hotel lobby, and John's bending my ear about doing this modular N-scale layout and having it be kind of Free-moN-like, or based on the ideas, the newer modular, standard ideas that were circulating at the time. Basically, the goal of the project was to model the Plymouth sub from Plymouth to Grand Rapids in N-scale during the Chessie era, circa 1978. 1978 worked for me for a variety of reasons. I was at MSU at the time. I wasn't into trains at the time, but since we were modeling the railroad, that one of the two railroads that passed through, it seemed like a good idea to me. Well, needless to say, Tyler and I were both found to be willing participants in this part of the journey, and the Plymouth sub was born. So between 2005 and 2009, we drafted our own standards, because why follow someone else's standards when you can make your own? And we built modules. John actually did a lot of the heavy lifting on that, and I helped and got a crash course in building modules from someone who's done it a lot. And we laid some track. We also I left off this slide, but we also did a few setups. We did a setup at one of the Ann Arbor shows. I don't remember what year. It might have been 2008. I've slept since then. We also did a setup. I think it was the last setup we did, might have been at the Lansing show, and that might have been in 2008 or 2009. Then there was also this setup that was a private setup that we're not going to talk too much about, but we actually had all the modules from the project assembled in one place in somebody's house. And that's all we're going to say about that. So no pictures. All right, so that's the Plymouth sub. And, the goal was single track through the module, prototypical modeling a specific era in a specific place. With the Plymouth sub project, Tyler and I went on a side quest. Tyler instigated this, of course, but it sounded like a lot of fun, so I went along for the ride. And Tyler wanted to model the MSU power plant and the Trowbridge siding. That's fine, but he wanted to do it one-to-one, no compression, which was, as it turned out, more or less doable in a reasonable length modules. So we went off, and Tyler what did we call you back then, Tyler? You were the finder of things. We had
Wrangler of knowledge.
Wrangler of knowledge. Tyler was and still is the Wrangler of knowledge. And we went on this quest to find whatever information we could about what that track and what the surrounding area looked like in late 78. And our journey, we looked at websites, we looked at pictures, we did all kinds of things, and we finally ended up in the MSU library and we ended up on the map library on the 4th floor. And in the map library, we found this amazing map by the MSU physical plant. It was a terrain map, had contour lines with 1 foot contour intervals of pretty much the whole campus, but the area we cared about was the railroad. And so we had found a map of the railroad we wanted to model with 1 foot contour lines. Wow, that was cool. So we did the obvious thing back in 2008 or 2000. Yeah, it was 2008, I think. We went to the credit union to get a roll of quarters so we could feed the copy machine on the 4th floor of the map library, because it's not like we had phones in our pocket that we could take pictures of the maps. So we went and got the quarters, we came back, and we photocopied on the biggest page size we could get out of the copier. We photocopied the right of way of the railroad, and we did both the chassis and we did the grand trunk, because if you're doing the chassis through Trowbridge, you're going to want to do the diamond too. That's a whole nother story for another day. But we copied all this stuff, and then I did some magic on the computer to scan everything, paste it all together to make one big scan, one big image of what we had scanned, what we had copied and scanned. And then I scaled it so we could import it into Third Planet and then put it on our modules and actually design our modules with that image as a background. And then we were able to lay track, as you see in the picture, we were able to lay track and in the CAD, and actually even color code the contour lines, which was very tedious, but it really helped. We were able to color code the contour lines, and Jonathan, you'll appreciate that. I used the resistor color code because we needed 10 values, for each foot of each group of 10 feet. And then we proceeded to use 2 millimeter thick kitty foam to make these contours. And I don't even remember the exact process anymore. We did take some pictures of what we were doing, but I haven't been able to piece it together. But 2 millimeter kitty foam works because 12 inches in real life is 1.905 millimeters in N-scale. And that 2 millimeter thick kitty foam isn't exactly 2 millimeters thick. And it's not like you can exactly measure it because you put a caliper on it and it'll squish. So we figured 1.905, 2 millimeters, yeah, we're there. So we basically were able to model not just the X and Y, but the Z 1-to-1. It was quite a thing. And I have a picture of what that looks like. We didn't get too far with laying track. We got as far as laying the main line. We got as far as sculpting the stair step contour lines a little bit using acrylic caulk, but that's kind of where it's at. And that takes us to the next part of our journey. Time Passages. I love that song. Anyways, 12 years later, fast forward 12 years to this year, 2021. Plymouth sub project never reached its potential. Life got in the way. Tyler moved off to go to school and then to work. Life happened to me, and there we are 12 years later. Tyler's modules and my modules actually both spent 12 years tucked away in the basement underneath the layout. And the layout, that's the layout that I also wasn't able to work on during that 12 years. Meanwhile, N-scale wasn't standing still. N-scale underwent a revolution. And it's stuff that I honestly, wouldn't have imagined happened, especially the last part. Metal wheels, we were looking at using metal wheels. We had bought some metal wheels back then, but that process was you buy your Microtrains trucks, you pull out the plastic wheels, you buy the metal wheels, you put them in, and away you go. Meanwhile, body mount, not only metal wheels, but body mount couplers have become the norm. I mean, you can buy rolling stock from the manufacturers out of the box with metal wheels and body mount couplers. That's huge. It's huge for N-scale. You HO guys are going, yeah, what's the big deal? But for N-scale and for somebody who disappeared from N-scale for 12 years, wow, this is a big deal. So that was great. And then the other thing, and this is the thing I never thought I'd see happen, primarily because I used to do decoder installs for hire back in the day. Factory installed sound in N-scale locomotives. It blows my mind. I've seen it. I have 3 of them. I've of course taken them apart to see how they did it. And I still am just shaking my head going, wow, I can't believe it. So in the same space that a former, just a straight up DCC decoder with no sound, they've got sound decoders that fit in the exact same space, in the same size. And they managed to put a speaker. Generally, the speaker goes in the fuel tank and faces down, but there you go. All right. So we've got a revolution going. Meanwhile, we also have a revolution going in the N-scale modular railroading world. And Tyler starts sending me pictures about it. And he's on Facebook following all these guys doing Free-moN modules and doing prototype scenes like this one, which, Tyler, I don't remember where this bridge is. I think it's in Missouri, maybe. It's is it BNSF?
Yeah, I think this is well, the modeler's name is Mark Watson.
It's Mark. Yeah, it's Mark Watson.
And he lives in Nebraska. I believe this is the Missouri. It's BNSF, but I think it's the Missouri River in Nebraska.
Okay. So I mean, this is beautiful stuff, and Tyler sending me pictures like this and going, look at this. The guy modeled the bridge in CAD and then 3D printed it, right? And it's, I don't remember if it's 1-to-1, if the bridge is 1-to-1 or compressed, Tyler. I don't remember that
I
part.
don't know. I can't remember.
But regardless, it's an amazing, and we've since seen it, at the setup that we went to, and the module is basically finished at this point. So Tyler's sending me pictures like this, and he's talking about these Free-moN setups where, you can see, and it's like, I look at that and go, wow, look at all those modules. How cool is this? Right. And, got pictures. This is that same setup that was just in the picture. Here's some guys who we met actually. And, here's another one. This is, another Free-moN, Nebraska again. And this is a prototype scene being modeled, 2 railroads crossing. Wow, that's really cool stuff. I mean, this is the stuff that Tyler and I were envisioning when we were working on the Plymouth sub modules. This is what we wanted to do, and people are doing it now. So I was interested, I was excited, I was inspired. Tyler was as well, obviously. And so what did I do? The same weekend that the Spring Creek event was happening, I went down in the basement, I got my modules out, and I brought them up to the living room and I set them up. And by the end of that weekend, the same weekend they were doing the setup in Deschler, Nebraska, I was putting the modules together and pulling out my sound locomotive, pulling out the yard, putting it in front of the fireplace. I never use fireplace anyway. It's fine. It's all good. And besides, it's my house. So got the curves up and set it all up, and actually ran a train even before I hooked up all the modules. So I know not everybody is a fan of sound in locomotives, but I am. So hopefully you guys can hear that. Can you hear that?
No.
Oh, shoot. I don't even know how to make that work. It's playing in my ears.
We heard the horn, but that was it.
Okay. All right, maybe it needs to be louder. Anyways. Okay. So, yeah, so we've got modules now. So that's April, middle April. And so we start getting into this and start figuring out what do we need to do to convert our modules, our former Plymouth sub modules that were built to a certain standard. How do we convert them to Free-moN modules following the Free-moN standard? And I love the quote, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. In this case, if all you have is a 3D printer, everything looks like a CAD project. So, you know, one challenge was how do we adapt our modules and do the part where we bring the rail right to the end of the module. And there are a couple ways that people seem, you know, we looked at what people were doing. There are a couple methods, both of them involve a wood road bed or, you know, screwing wood screws into the wood of the end plate, and then soldering the rail to the to either the screws or these PC ties that you see pictured there. Well, neither Tyler and I were crazy about that. It seemed kind of fiddly to do, although we are talking about doing something with PC board ties. But if we do that, I will be laying out a PC board, so it will all be one piece. But what we did instead is we rather easily took a different project that John Youngin had me do, involving turnout throw, and we stretched it out and made it into a roadbed piece that I could then print. And the beauty of this, I made one test print, and then the beauty, of course, of the 3D printer is once you've made one, you can stack a bunch of them on the 3D, you know, the design on the 3D printer and crank them out. And so we did that, and Tyler had one which he test fit on his module. And this is what it looks like after it's had track laid on it. And basically this is how we did it. I used, Tyler, I don't remember what adhesive you used to glue everything down, but at least for the wood, the attachment of the ballast of the roadbed piece to the wood, I used CA, and then I used CA on the track. So that, you know, and that actually leads me into another discussion, a quick topic I want to bring up. Oh, and of course, you know, if we have this roadbed piece, then we need a tool for installing the roadbed piece on the end of the track. So I quickly threw something together in CAD that makes sure that the roadbed piece is square with the end of the module, and allows you to also lay the track. You can see the gaps here in the end for the rail, and it lets you lay the track in the right place with the tracking gauge right on the end of the module. So that is something we did right away in order to help us update our modules. Another thing, and this is as close as we're going to get to a modeling how-to in this presentation. When I was attaching these plastic roadbed pieces to the module, and then I was attaching the sectional pieces of track I used on the end of the module. When I was attaching those, I used CA. And you know, we have different adhesives we like to use, and I've always thought that CA is kind of an underutilized adhesive in the hobby. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the impression I get. But you know, I thought as I was doing that, and I used the CA to glue the track, but where the track went over onto the roadbed, I went back to the adhesive of choice that I used for track, and that was acrylic caulk. But that was kind of tedious, and of course the caulk takes time to dry, And I was, as we'll get into in a few minutes here, I was running out of time. So I thought, CA dries really quick. I wonder if I can use it to actually lay track. Well, okay, the first question is, I'm using this foam roadbed. Are the materials compatible? Is CA and the foam roadbed compatible? So I put a drop of CA on the foam roadbed. It did not, melt all the way to China. It was fine. In fact, it just sat there and didn't even really set up while it was just sitting there. Said, okay, so they're compatible. So let me take a piece of track, or at least a piece of ties, and let me put some CA on the bottom of it and then stick the two together and see what happens. And sure enough, it set up relatively quickly. I was using the liquid CA at the time. And I thought, okay, fine. So it's set up. Let's pull it apart and see what happens. See if it actually stuck. Well, it turns out you can see the picture. It stuck. It's the joint was, the adhesive joint was actually stronger than the material the ties were stuck to. So, okay, that means I can proceed. So I went ahead and tried the 2-foot module, 2-foot straight module, and used CA to attach the track to it. Now, of course, you got to do a few things because you've already got 2 pieces on the end, 1 on each end. And so you're dropping a piece in the middle. So I made sure the piece in the middle that I'm putting in was the right size. And I had the ties, enough ties removed so I could have the rail joiners out of the way when I dropped this piece in between. And so, but they were on the rails, if I'm recalling correctly. Well, they were either on one side or the other. I don't remember which. And then I went ahead and put CA on the bottom of an almost 2-foot piece of track, and very carefully, starting at one end, got it engaged into the joiners, and then set it down, and very quickly lined up the other end, and then pushed the rail joiners to the center of the joint, and it was done. I was done laying track, just like that. So the CA set up kind of quickly, the liquid set up kind of quickly. So I thought, I've got this 6-foot module I want to do, and I got 5.5 feet of flex track I want to put in there. So I thought, well, let's try it. Let's see what happens. Worst case, you got to cut out all the, you lose a few pieces of track and you got to cut out the foam roadbed and start over again. But it seemed like a risk worth taking. And I did, in fact, I decided to try the gel CA instead to see if I got a little bit more working time. And I will say that it did allow me some more working time. Was it enough working time? It was more working time than the other one. It was enough to get the track straight enough. And as Tyler reminded me, real track isn't that straight, and he ought to know. So so that was an experiment that worked, and I thought I'd throw this in here just because that was part of the journey, and I wanted to include that. And it's something I would encourage people to play around with. So our next part here is Oak joins the party. So Tyler and I had been on this quest for, going on 15 years. Meanwhile, he decided to come home mid-May and celebrate his Mother's Day and his mom's birthday, and also to bring his module home and meet up with everybody. And so we got together. He brought his module home. Oak and Tyler started working on the module. And Oak started making sawdust. And of course, we suggested that he come with us on this trip. I'm leaving from Lansing. He could ride with me, whatever, and we'll go. And then he could even ride back with Tyler if he wanted. But he wasn't going for that. So, okay, fine. but you know, he's helping Tyler with his module. And it's starting to look like he's having fun. So I don't know, he's got a lot of clamps. Hey, Oak, you got enough clamps there, man?
You never have enough clamps. You always need one more than you have.
And that's what the caption on the photo is. Thank you for saying exactly what I knew you'd say.
Yes.
So that's why that caption's there. You know, I'm pretty sure he's actually enjoying this. So next thing we know, a higher authority had intervened, namely Tyler's mom and Oak's wife of over 40 years. And Oak joined the party. And we're glad he did. And he's doing wood shop projects because he's kind of a wood shop kind of guy. And this was what, a guide for cutting out the cab panel.
Yes.
Yeah. So you would, this was in order to make the cutout on the fascia to put the cab bus panels.
Yep. You'd lock that onto the fascia and then use a router. And it would route that out.
And since I don't have a router, I didn't make anything that, and I'm not a wood shop guy. Woodworking is not my hobby. Woodworking is a means to an end for me. And so I didn't make anything like that. I just used my Diablo bits and did the best I could and counted on the fact that the bezel was going to cover the hole. But yeah, so he's making wood shop projects. Look at this. Here's another wood shop project. What's going on here? Starting to look like a module. Now we're getting somewhere. We got some foam on top, you know, and in the meantime, when I saw this picture, I'm like, what are those? What are those clamps? I don't have clamps like that. What is that? And I was schooled on what those clamps are. Dovetail clamps, is that right?
Yes.
And they are, when you need them, the right tool for the job. And I am all about having the right tool for the job. I need dovetail clamps. All right, pretty sure this is looking like a Free-moN module now. All right, that is definitely a Free-moN module. What's going on, Oak? You becoming an N-scaler? What's up with that? This is a great picture. This is the guy who's smiling because someone else hooked up his electrical for him.
Yeah, that's right.
And we'll let you guys guess who that was. But yeah, that's a guy that's someone who's enjoying what they're doing. Look at this. Now he's even buying rolling stock. What's going on here, man? And I didn't have a picture of his locomotive, so I didn't include that. Look at this. He's even done lights. Look at that. Beautiful. All right. And he's smiling because his module's done. And it's hard to tell in this picture, but you can see Bob's surrounding modules are still pink foam. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. That's why he's smiling and I'm going, oh, shoot, except I didn't say shoot. I need to get going. Train, we even ran trains over it. How cool. All right, so Oak's now part of this party and we're three of us here. All right, so this is one of my favorite slides because it shows how you can get in over your head and just how easy it is. May 17th. So Tyler comes, Tyler visits, Tyler's going to this thing in Wyoming, Evanston. He's going to Evanston. Great. Okay, cool. Well, shoot, if you're going, I'm going. But I don't see how I can get a module done in 3 months. There's no way. So, okay. Especially there was some stuff going on at work. I had to go back to full-time from my normal 4 days a week. You know, that, yeah, hardship, I know. But I wasn't retired like Oak, who, you know, who did his module much quicker, and it was a much more elaborate woodshop project. So I started small. I said, you know, May 17th, 3 months out. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make a module, but I'm definitely coming to the event. Okay, cool. So 8 days later, I'm hoping to have at least one module updated in the next month. It's a straight module, 6 feet long, 12 inches wide. No problem. I'll get that done. I will be bringing that. So, but I still needed some time. I wasn't ready to commit to one module, but I'm saying one module. All right. Something happened between May 25th and June 16th. We'll see pictures in a minute. But now I'm committing not just to one module that I talked about, I'm committing to 2 modules, West Williamston and Berkeley Road. Okay. Oh, and then here's the best part. Do you need curves? I have 2 existing 90-degree curve modules that I can make ready if you think you need them. Well, of course, he's going to tell me to bring them because we had already signed up for bringing what, 8 or 12, yeah, 8, 12, 16 or 14 feet of straight modules. So someone's bringing curves? Yeah, great. Okay. I did the fit check in the car. It went well. I guess I should be showing some pictures here. You know, here's the things that were happening that made me think I could bring 2 modules. Oh, actually, I can bring 4 modules, no problem. All right. And then I did the fit check in the car. Look at that. Everything fits. Right now, everything fits. So I committed to bringing 4 modules. Folks, this is how you go from under-promising and over-delivering to over-promising and over-delivering. And oh, by the way, under-delivering was not an option because we're the FNGs, we're the new guys. This is first impressions. There was no way I could back out once I had committed to it. So over-promising and over-delivering. That's what happened here. And there we are with finally shaped scenery July 3rd. So we're heading into, at this point, we're at like 2.5 months until the event. Okay. Are we there yet? Part 1. This is in 3 parts. First plan, get all the modules done by the end of July. And then I've got 2 weeks to put trains together, maybe even do some weathering, get everything ready, take it on the trip. Plan B, second plan, get all the modules ready by the weekend before the trip. And then I've got 3 days to get trains ready, take them on the trip. Third iteration of the plan, get all the modules ready by Sunday night before you leave on Tuesday and have 1 day to get trains ready. And oh, by the way, that day you have a dentist appointment and you got to mow the lawn before you leave. That's still not what happened. What actually happened, all the modules ready by 22:30 on Monday night before leaving Tuesday morning, supposedly at 10 a.m. That didn't even happen. Up till 2 a.m., after 2 a.m., making sure all the modules are in the car before I go to bed, because that was the rule I had said. That was the line in the sand. That was the modules have to be in the car before you go to bed. You don't get to go to bed until the modules are in the car. So 10:30, the modules are finally ready. Another, almost 4 hours goes by and the modules are finally all in the car. The car is closed, ready to go. So lots of stuff happening during this time in part 1. We masked up the modules so they're ready for painting. We primed them. We painted the first coat. Oh, then a friend of mine who was following along in pictures said, hey, you really need to paint those legs black. I wasn't planning on doing that because in the interest of time, but you know, it's hard to argue when they're right, guys? So I said, okay, fine, black. All right, we'll paint them. Paint the legs, painted the modules. All right, roadbed piece. Oh, then meanwhile, second coat, legs only. That's July 10th. A week goes by and I'm laying track. You know, I unmask them, get the track all set up, you know, use the CA, do all that. You know, apply the roadbed end pieces, tracks installed. That's great. Now I can go to feeders and electrical. Another week goes by, I think it's a week, and feeders and bus wires installed. Okay, I'm ready to set the modules up, check to see that I didn't make any mistakes, crossed any feeders to buses, hook them up, make sure the electrical works. And it does. And this was my first train on the new Free-moN modules. Fantastic. Okay. All right. And in this, now we need to start talking about the scenes I'm going to model. And Bob makes a scene, actually a prototype scene. Not one scene, not two scenes, 4 scenes. So I had to come up with 4. So the long straight with the dip in it was always going to be downtown Williamston. And this is the part I love. You would never know by looking at the module. You would never know by looking at this picture. There were, except for the, the houses, and you can see the track from the school. This is downtown Williamston. This is west of the main downtown intersection. And Deer Creek runs right through this. And the funny thing is, 15 years, I had these modules, 12 years in the basement. I'd never actually, modeled the dip. And the reason I modeled the dip is because as I was coming home from work on I-96, I would see trains, and I would go up Zimmer Road, and I would stand at Zimmer Road, and I would see the trains, and I would see them go. As I was standing at Zimmer Road, I would see them come up out of this dip, and they would come up, and you would see their headlights first, and then you would see the ditch lights, and it was just a really cool scene. So I thought, I'm going to model that. And so, John Young and I came up with a way to do it, physical module, to put the dip in and go down in the middle and have the ends be up at normal height. But I'd never actually looked to see why the track dipped until just as I was working on the scenery here. And I looked and I was like, oh yeah, that's a creek. It's called Deer Creek. That's perfect. I don't have time for that right now. So I modeled this scene without Deer Creek at the time. And I'm going to go back and do Deer Creek later. But one of the blocking points for me was, when I was modeling, it's summer, it's July, and the trees, all these trees are all leafed out. So my view of that viaduct was obscured. So, one of the things I need to do is wait till the leaves drop, and then I can get in there and take pictures of the viaduct so I can get an idea of how much distance is between the rails and the top of the viaduct, so I can model it correctly. And the other reason I didn't model it is because it was probably going to involve taking some wood out from underneath from the sub roadbed, which was fairly structural, and it was going to involve some structural changes that I really didn't want to do because I didn't have time. So Deer Creek was left unmodeled, but the rest of it, that's the prototype scene I used to model. And that's the picture I was looking at as I was putting down scenery. Same for Berkeley Road. Oak had passed on the suggestion of having his 2-foot-long module be a grade crossing. And of course, I was advocating for Berkeley Road. So I thought, well, if he's not going to do it, I've got a 2-foot module here. I can rehabilitate that 2-foot module. I'll do Berkeley Road. So, and again, this was one that I decided I could do with no compression. And so that's what I did. So that 2 feet, that 320 feet of railroad length and 160 feet, 80 feet on either side of the track, that's what I modeled on that module. Then there's what I euphemistically called Maggie's Farm, because for some reason a Bob Dylan song came into my head while I was working on the farm module. And it was late at night, and there must have been a subliminal message there that I wanted to stop doing it and go to bed. So I did continue working on Maggie's Farm, even though the song says that I ain't gonna. And then this was the other choice for a curve initially. I had 2 curve modules, and there were really 3 good choices on the Plymouth sub out west. And, you know, the thing that's unspoken here is that I actually backed into doing the Plymouth sub that we had talked about doing 15 years ago, because I didn't make any other choice than looking at the Plymouth sub for prototype scenes to model. And this was a curve not taken. It's in Ada. There was another curve I looked at that I initially said, no, I don't want to do that one. I'm going to do this one instead because it's a little more of a curve. But then I kept going back to McCord's Creek, which is the curve immediately east of the one I had chosen in Ada. And I kept looking at it and I said, no, you know what? You know, one of the reasons I didn't want to do it, it's got a road, that's adding more complication. You're already doing one grade crossing. Yeah, but it's a dirt road. It's, you know, you can see actually in the Google Earth image, you can see that it's a cross box and a stop sign. So you can do this, you know, let's do this. And the creek will be cool. It's a, you know, and it won't be that hard to do. So I ended up going with McCord's Creek for the second curve, and I'm really happy I did. So that's me making a scene. Are we there yet? Part two. We're down to less than 3 weeks to go. The modules electrically work, mechanically they work. We can run a train across them. It's time to do scenery. So this is the easy part of scenery, right? This is you know, sculpting the land. This is painting the landscape. This is putting down, you know, putting down the road. Did I have 2 copies of that picture? I don't know. This is putting down the road. This is, you know, doing some work on the road. This is also part of scenery, but not part of the easy part of scenery. This, well, making trees is easy. It's just a lot of effort. So, and I built this tree drying stand out of old pieces of the old layout, we'll just say, structure from the old layout. And I only had to make actually 1 cut in order to do this. So that was kind of fun. And we made trees and they're soaking up the sun because we actually used, you know, the spray cans, enamel spray cans, and actually they, you know, that paint takes a while to cure and it smells pretty strongly. The day after you know, my brother came up and helped me the day after we did those trees, and I came down from upstairs and the ground floor of the house smelled like paint. So I immediately moved the trees back outside and let them soak in the sun to hopefully get rid of some of that aroma. And now we get to, are we there yet? Part 3. And this actually was the fun part, although I approached it with some trepidation. We're now down to 10 days. And I had to get all my scenery stuff out of the basement. And it turns out I had a lot of scenery stuff. I was pretty well equipped. I had all this stuff from way back when. It was just spread all over in different containers in different boxes. So I got it all out so I could see what I had, got it all in one place. And that's what I did there. Well, let's before we do that. So, right, we did the easy parts of scenery. Everything that was done so far is base layers, you know, it's not what people are going to see when they look at the modules. This next step where we're going now, where we only have 10 days to do, determines what the modules will look like. Okay, and what follows next were these five steps, starting with panic, because, you know, I really hadn't done that much scenery before, you know, in the way back. And then procrastination. You don't have time to procrastinate. You need to start this, okay? And then let's go to bed tonight. We'll think about it. We'll wake up fresh. We'll do it tomorrow. No, that's procrastinating. No, you're going to start this tonight. You're going to at least do a little bit, right? So I do a little bit. And the first step was the hardest. This is trying to model Williamston. So I'm holding my iPad, looking at the scene on Google Earth, Google Maps, looking at the real thing that I'm trying to model. And I put some ground foam down. Okay, that wasn't so bad. Let's do a little more. Actually, this is going all right. It doesn't look bad. You know, you got to pretend there's trees there. You know, there's dark areas are where the trees are going to go. All right, that's not so bad. Okay. Now I've done one whole end. I've done 6 feet of scenery. Let's put some trees. Let's see what it looks like with trees. All right, that looks pretty cool. Okay, so I went from, this is panic. I don't know how to do this. What am I going to do? I only have 10 days. I can't do this. To, this is fun. This is really fun. Look at what I did. Holy crap, right? So, yeah, this is fun. And I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know. By the way, then I removed the trees because I wasn't so confident about and you'll see this on the next module too. I wasn't so confident about transporting the module with trees. I'd never done it. So my plan was to remove the trees and replace them in place when I got there. So that was the plan. That's what happened. Then I started on the next one. That was fun. Let's do it again. McCord's Creek, getting the treatment. Okay. This was the point right here, this picture. This was the point where I said, wow. Okay. It was about 6:30. I needed to take a break. I needed to make some dinner, 6:30 in the evening. So I went over in the kitchen. This was actually in the dining area. I pushed the dining room table out of the way because I had a tile floor. I had good lighting. And I said, okay, you know what? I am going to, I need to take a break. I need to eat. And I started working on dinner and I kept stopping, turning around, going around the cabinets and looking at this module and going, I can't believe what that looks like. I can't believe how good that looks. I can't believe I did that. Did I do that? Really? It just astounded me. I mean, no one was more surprised than me. I was sending pictures. I had a group of people I was sending pictures, but no one was more surprised to me at how this turned out. And again, I'm modeling a prototype scene and I'm thinking, actually, it looks pretty good. And you can see the pictures I used as guides. And I was also had my iPad, so I'm looking at it. You know, yeah, there's some compression, and yeah, I did. The angle of the curve is quite a bit more, but you know, here I am. And the trees really make it. So, okay, you know, that one's done. Got to keep moving. Got to move on, right? So a new challenge. I got to make farm fields. I got to plow the ground. All right, you know, and I had been putting this off for a while, trying to come up with a way to do it that I was satisfied with. And finally, when push came to shove and I had to do it, the easiest way actually won out, and it was the best choice. Funny how that works. So this is just lightweight spackling compound. And I took my old comb that I don't use anymore because I really don't need it with my hair. I got fingers, that's my comb. And nobody cares what I look like anyway. So yeah, so here we go. Yeah, all the bald guys are just doing this. It's funny watching you guys. So, but yeah, so I took my old comb, I took the wide end, I cut out every other prong, measured it on the scale, the N-scale ruler that I had, and it's like 30 inches. And I'm looking at the Google Earth images and zooming in and doing the math. And I don't know anything about farming, but it looks like these rows are 30 inches apart. Okay, close enough. So that's what I did. I've got, you know, and I spread this lightweight spackling compound that's spread. By the way, a brand new container of that spreads like buttercream frosting. I'm just saying, as opposed to the old container that I had that spread like nothing. It didn't spread. So here I go. New challenge accepted. See, get the greenery down on the module. Put something out, put some ground foam that sort of looks like dirt over the farm fields. This module's done. Okay, I got 3 modules with scenery now, which is good because it's 5 days before I'm leaving. So that's great. And oh, by the way, we need more trees. So my brother graciously came up 2 Fridays in a row and we made trees. And his bonus was seeing how I did ballasting. So started ballast that evening as well. Okay, and before that evening was out, I had ballast down on McCord's Creek as well. 2 modules the next day, Saturday, ballast down and glued on 2 modules. And ballast down on a 3rd module. Fantastic. All we got left is this 4th module. It's only 2 feet long. How long is it going to take? Oh, and the trees are finished. Hooray. And the trees that were on McCord's Creek became toothpicks, and the dirt road got a paint job. So there we are. And that brings us to the Berkeley Road speed run. We've got less than 3 days to go. Berkeley Road needs to be treated with scenery. It was still pink foam, not good. Time for the Berkeley Road speed run, or how I modeled a prototype scene to scale, no compression in less than 48 hours. And oh, by the way, most of that time was spent letting the module dry. It doesn't take that long to do this, is the take home. This is what it looked like Saturday morning, pink foam, and a plan, an idea. I transferred the idea to the pink foam and had a few things I needed to do that didn't involve this module, like gluing down ballast on one of the other modules. And since I had learned how to do the plowed fields, it was pretty easy, on the Maggie's farm, it was pretty easy on this one. And then this has to dry. I got the road down and this has to dry. So it dries. Later that night, I painted with craft paint. I threw craft paint down to outline everything. It's kind of paint by numbers looking, but that's going to guide me through the rest. That dried overnight. Again, drying time being the operative word. And then Berkeley Road gets dirty, and I'm using the treatment I picked up from Luke Towan in his videos, where he uses tile grout, non-sanded tile grout, and then you put down 1-to-1 matte medium. You sprinkle tile grout on. You got different colors. You can do different things, and then you put down a layer of 3-to-1 matte medium. Let it dry. Again, there's that drying time. All right, later Sunday, we do the ground foam. Berkeley Road goes green. We spray it again and let it dry. Sunday night, I removed the masking and went into the night painting. There is not a picture of where I was done painting the rail. This is the last rail. All the other modules, the rail's been painting. This is the last one. I'm literally putting the lid on my bottle of the rusty red rail paint. And it jumps out of my hand. The lid jumps out of my hands. The bottle goes sideways. And I've got rusty red all over the table, thankfully not on the module, all over the table there, the workshop table, down on the floor, on the grout, everything. Great. Okay. So that was a midnight cleaning job, mopping everything, the whole works. That was a sidetrack for an hour that I could have been sleeping when I really needed to be sleeping, because I had a dentist appointment at 8 a.m. on Monday morning. All right. Meanwhile, go to the dentist, come back, apply the ballast, get the glue down on the ballast, let it dry. there's that drying time again. Monday, 3 in the afternoon, Berkeley Road speed run complete. Basically 2 hours from when I started actually doing the scenery. I'm sorry, 2 days, 48 hours on the clock. I have a module with scenery. And most of that time was drying time. Just saying. All right. Set up, test, tear down, pack. The rule was everything goes into one room. Anything that needs to be there to set up the modules goes in that room and stays. The only way it goes from there is into the car. That's what I did. I got the modules connected. The grade crossings needed a little work. They were a little tight after being painted. Worked on that. Finally got a train to go through. Actually, the rail needed to be cleaned better than I thought it was. So I cleaned it. And then I ran a train. And then at almost 11 at 10:30 at night, going on 11, I had to make these pieces to put the curbs together so they could be transported in one piece. That took a little while. Then I had to connect them together. Then I had to figure out how to move 2 curbs at one time, which were a lot heavier when they were connected together with the heaviest plywood I could possibly have used. And, but I did manage at 2 a.m. to get them in the car. This is what the car looked like at 2 a.m., but I had no patience to take pictures. So this was 8:30 in the morning the next day. But this is the car, modules in the car. This was not the same as the original test fit. There are a number of reasons for that, including that, oh, by the way, with the curbs were taller when I added these 2 pieces, and that was just taller enough to bump into the roof where the seatbelt was. So had to rearrange things, stuck the legs. Thankfully, they fit in front of the folded down seat, and that worked. Somehow these got out of order. Oh no, this is the video. I put it on a different page. So that was the video of the test. And that brings us to the journey, this part of the journey, which is the route crosses time zones. I don't know how we are, guys. Does it make sense to take a break now? I know I'm kind of talking for a long time. Andy, you did say I could talk as long as I needed, but I even exceeded that. So do we want to take a break for 5 minutes now?
Yeah, that might not be bad. How much longer do you figure we'll be?
Well, what I've got left is basically showing the event, which, you know, is kind of part of this. I basically spent an hour talking about getting to the event. Then I've got showing the event, which has quite a few pictures, which doesn't require a lot of talking, and then a couple videos, and then actually showing our modules.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, if somebody needs to take a quick break, they can probably take one while we're doing this, because others probably don't need to.
Okay, they can, but I can't. So
Okay, well,
tell you what we're going to do. We're going to quickly go through the journey, but then when we get to the point where we're getting there, I will take a break.
Okay, that's good.
And then we'll go from there.
All right, very good, thanks.
All right. So the route crosses time zones. Yes, it does. This is the route I took. Meanwhile, John flew to Minneapolis and then on to Grand Forks, and then he and Tyler drove, and it was a race to see who was going to get there first. It turned out the boys made it first. The Hartmann boys made it first, but only by about an hour. And actually, since I left 2 hours later than I planned, if I had left on time, I probably would have beat him. So it was very close. And this was one of the reasons I left late. I literally went less than a mile and found a train on the Grand Trunk right near my house, which I think is an auspicious beginning to a trip about trains. Had some amazing scenery. Let's go back. Amazing scenery along the way. Gosh, I can't tell you. And you know, once you get into Nebraska and then into Wyoming, I mean, you've got the UP main line right there running next to I-80. And here I was running 80 miles an hour on I-80 because that's the speed limit. And, you know, someone in the car was taking pictures of the train going by. We're not going to say who. Anyways, and then just driving downhill from the highest point on I-80, which was over 8,000 feet. It was quite something. I wondered why I was feeling a little, you know, like altitude, like I do when I go to Colorado, and that was why. And then there was some rain on the way in Wyoming, and actually, David, this was about the time you called me on the trip, not knowing I was on the trip, and had a beautiful rainbow. So in some just amazing looking scenery. So that was the drive that crossed time zones, 2 time zone boundaries. And now we're at the destination. So actually, Andy, I think we'll go to where I originally planned. Actually, we'll go to where the videos are, and then I'll take a quick break.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So this is the Evanston Machine Shop. And this is where the event was. You can see not just the picture of the machine shop over here, but the whole complex that included the roundhouse. And this is an architectural concept. We can tell you that some of it looks like that, but not all of it. It's a very grand plan, and I hope they eventually do all of it, but it's really nicely done. And the machine shop, what they did to the machine shop was quite nice. These doors, amazing. I assume they're refurbished and not, you know, new construction, but either way, they did a great job. This is a building from the back. You can see the roundhouse over there to the right, and they have refinished part of the roundhouse, that part closest to the machine shop, and they host events, and they've even got meeting rooms and things like that. They gave us a tour. It's a really nice space. In fact, there was a wedding reception being hosted there on Saturday of the event. And then we get in the building, and wow, this is a really nice layout room, guys. Good choice. So this is the plan. This is what we built. We put it together in a day and then played with it for the remaining days, and then took it down in half the time it took to put it up. We started at 8 a.m. on Thursday, and by 5, basically by dinner time, we had assembled the railroad, done the electrical, and it was ready to start running locomotives to see how everything worked. The space was 15,000 square feet. It's 150 by 100 feet. We had 1,200 feet of linear modules, 1,200 linear feet of modules. Just shy of 300 modules. It was 290 something. It took at least 4 hours to run over the entire railroad. And really, if you're going at a reasonable speed, it was 6. And with traffic, it was take 6 hours to run the entire railroad. I never ran the entire railroad. I ran the railroad twice. Tyler did a few more times, and so did Oak. But it took me a good 3 hours each time I ran it. And my goal primarily was to cover each of my modules. Excuse me, my 2 curves were right here on this branch. Tyler's module was, where was your module? Oh, it was right here. Tyler's module was right here. My 6-foot-long straight for Williamston was right here. And this was a really nice spot. This crossing is an amazing crossing. I'll show pictures of that. And then And then here, this was the Williamston, West Williamston, and then Oak had his module right here. And this was a branch, but there was a loop on it, so that was actually convenient for going down. And then my Berkeley Road grade crossing was right here. So we were kind of spread out. Part of that was because of committing at different times. But yeah, I mean, this was an amazing railroad. It was a lot of fun to run. So I'll show the setup. This is the destination. This is what the car actually looked like when I got there. These pictures were absolutely invaluable to putting everything back in the car so I could go home. So this is a highly recommended practice. If you have a tight packing, you guys who do modules, if it's tight, take pictures. Digital pictures are essentially free. So that was my cooler, my trusty friend. I could not have had Oak ride with me. That was the thing that we figured out. And we didn't figure it out. I didn't figure it out until 2 a.m. the night before I left. So it's good that he did what he did and flew and rode with Tyler. I didn't have room for anybody to go with me. Here we are setting up. We were very good about masks during setup. The masks kind of got a lot looser as time went on. Here's a picture of the two of us with our modules connected to that beautiful junction module, which models a prototype scene in California. Here we are. I had decided it was time to start planting trees, and Oak was doing something with wires. I don't know. It's a good picture. It looks good, regardless of what he's doing. Maybe he's hooking up the cab bus.
I was hooking up the accessory bus.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the the accessory bus, right? Because did you draw power off the accessory bus?
Yes.
So you actually needed it.
Yep. That's what lit everything up.
Okay. Yeah, that was nice, and that's exactly what the accessory bus is for. So I mean, here's as we're setting up. I think this was right before we went to lunch. We came back from lunch and a whole lot got done, and we were surprised. I was surprised that a lot had gotten done, and this was the next morning, but this is, and everything was set up. But by basically 5 in the afternoon, we had everything good to go. I'm going to switch the order of these two slides. Let's see if I can do that without having to skip through every single one. Every single picture. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to drop out of presentation mode for a minute, and I'm going to go to the next slide. And then I'm going to start the presentation again. I'll see you guys in a minute. Tyler, I should have suggested that you narrate these. That's one of Tyler's trains, and here's another of Tyler's trains. Oh, Tyler dropped off. So this is a train Tyler modeled apparently when they wanted to run 1225 to Virginia, I think, somewhere out east. CSX wanted to make sure that they could reliably run. So they had them run freight back and forth for a while. And I don't know when this was. Tyler's the expert on that. And
It was 91.
there you are, you're quiet. So that was 91. So yeah, and we went rapidly from, I think the guy who modeled this bridge said it was in Utah, somewhere out west. I thought it looked a lot like something on the Montana railing, but he said it was Utah. And then the module after that was another beautiful module. It models the actually both are prototype locations. That one models a place where the young guy would watch trains go by, and so he built a module of it. All right, so that is the videos, and so in order to go back to the pictures, I need to do this. And we'll start with Berkeley Road. And these are just, these are really just kind of in chronological order. So Berkeley Road finished with trees and labeling in order to identify the location. This is Oaks module in place. This is that module I was just talking about. It's a prototype location in California, I think. And just really, this is an advertisement for static grass, without a doubt. And then this was another guy, another California modeler from the Silicon Valley group that was there. And this is again another prototype location in California. It's a lap siding, I think, on the SP. And just we were comparing notes on making trees, because I didn't make any pine trees. Mine were all deciduous trees, but he made a lot of pine trees. So we were just comparing notes on how we made trees, and he was showing off his module, and it's beautiful. And then I finally put the trees on McCord's Creek and took a few finished shots of that. And then literally right after, the guy who had done the SP, the lap siding, he came by with a very nice long Rio Grande coal train. So that was a nice treat on my module. Now here's that same bridge scene that Mark Watson modeled, and it's looking a lot more finished than the earlier pictures I had shown. Oh, and by the way, I should say that was Tyler's train, and this was a train I took a picture because he was following me as I was running on this, and my brother's a Santa Fe Streamliner fan, so I took that picture. And then here's Tyler going down and up the scenic dip, and you've already seen the video of this, and that video is really shows the scenic nature of this module, the dip. And I was really pleased at how many comments I got about the dip. People were coming up to me and going, one guy even said, I've seen you around this module. Is this your module? Yeah, I wanted to tell you how really nice this looks, how great it is, that, going down and all that. Yeah, it was really interesting. Apparently, no one's done it. no one's gone down. Going up is easy. You just put foam underneath the track and you go up. But going down, someone even asked me, well, how did you do it? So I said, well, just look underneath. It's all there. And yeah, so that was fun. That was very gratifying. The room was awesome, and in the afternoon, the light would come in the windows, and it made for some really nice lighting, and that's what this picture shows. This is actually the train I ran. Tyler took some pictures for me while I was running and running over my module. That's McCord's Creek that we're just going into. And finally, Maggie's farm got trees. This is actually what Maggie's farm is supposed to look like. The right-of-way is lined with trees. And then, of course, I had to take a picture of a Chessie coal train going over the Williamston dip and a caboose. Because we originally, that actually was what we had originally intended with the Plymouth sub, was for that module, Chessie era, Chessie trains, and there it was. So that was a great picture of that. This was Tyler's module. Tyler didn't do a lot of scenery because he knew he was going to be throwing it in the back of his pickup truck, and unceremoniously throwing it in the back of his pickup truck, and didn't want to risk, doing too much harm. So
to get everything to fit in the truck, the module ended up wrapped in a Harbor Freight shipping or moving blanket.
there you go.
Yes.
So that's a good reason not to have a lot of trees, especially super trees that are real fragile. So here's Oak's train. You remember the Commonwealth Edison coal cars. A little hard to see in this picture, though, is the DT&I locomotive he picked up along the way. Being an N-scaler, you can't just have freight cars, you gotta have a locomotive. And then one of the other guys that I had met who came from New Jersey didn't bring any modules to this meet, but he flew because he flew, but he did bring a very long CSX coal train led by CSX Power and BNSF Power. So I had to rail fan this. And so it's going over another one of the Watsons. Is this Mark's dad, Tyler?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it was somebody, one of the Watsons. And it's just a beautiful farm scene. It's not flat. One of the things I noticed, and I can't remember if I said earlier when we were looking at the Trowbridge siding and the coal yard module that Tyler and I did in 1-to-1 scale, but it became really obvious recently when I pulled out that module and was looking at it, that we make our railroads too flat. Even places like here in Michigan, even on the MSU campus, where we think, that's just flat. And if you looked at the USGS contour map with 10-foot intervals, yeah, it does look flat. But the thing is, when you have 1-foot contour intervals, you realize it ain't flat at all. And that's one of the things I really like about this module, because it isn't flat. And they went to the trouble to bring the scenery up above the fascia and then brought the black up to go with it. And you can see that right there. Really nice. And here's another view of that. This is just a really nice module. I mean, the house is up on a hill. The road even goes uphill after it crosses the tracks. It's just a beautiful module. So here's one that had a fully implemented, overhead grade crossing signals with the gates coming down. It was a lot of fun. And then here's a view from the other angle of that module, and with the afternoon lighting coming in, you can really see how not flat it is and how nicely done the scenery and the structures are. And this was Tyler's module going through or Tyler's train. Tyler did a southern train and running through some particularly nice scenery. And I caught a few different shots of that. And then this is a guy that Tyler knows that now we know. And he's a real nice guy, really good modeler. This is an industrial scene. It was several modules all strung together, basically a sectional grouping and a module. And you can see the track diagram. Yeah, I don't remember what it was, Tyler.
It's the White Pine Mine in the Upper Peninsula. And he models the Wisconsin Central
Nice.
in I think the 90s.
We know somebody else who does that in N-scale. All right. And there's 1225 on yet another really beautiful module, making the argument, I think, for static grass. I think that's static grass there. So, and a nice wood overpass. The 1225 train going through Oaks module. And then, and I think this is the last picture. The Boeing 737 train going through someplace it never went and never will go, but still it's kind of a unique, nicely modeled train. So I got a picture of it. All right, yeah, we're gonna stop the video there. We're gonna try and stop the video. And we're gonna go to the next slide now. Oh, we're at the layout tour, sweet. Okay, let's go back to this. The break doesn't need to be that long. Actually, Oak, you could probably start. Terry, I need you to switch. Yeah, you're still in charge, right, Terry?
Yes,
I need you to make my other module. I'm gonna stop my video. I need you to make my other module. Oh, we don't do co-host. Okay, any of us can share our video, I think is how it's set up. All right, so Oak, yeah. And then maybe you just spotlight Oak right now, and then when he's done, you can spotlight me on the other device.
Say you first or Oak?
Oak first, and yes, so spotlight Oak first. He's already shown his module.
Thought I'd done it.
All right, and Terry, I'm going to switch audio to the other one.
I'm not having any luck with the spotlight function.
But it said on mine, it said you did it.
The problem is that we're still sharing Bob's screen. And so that's taking.
Ah, okay.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay. Oh. Or not. Yep. So
Here we go.
This isn't any, this is just something that I came up with. It came out pretty nice for all the wood came out of the barn. It was scrap. Bob gave me the track and the road bed. Thank you, Bob. And the pictures he had that he showed weren't quite done. I added quite a bit of other scenery. These two trucks, my nephew 3D printed. That turned out pretty cool. And then they were a little rough, but I just painted them in rust and put them in the back. Actually put some grass growing out of one of them. The truck and the lights and the buildings are all Woodland Scenics, plug and play. Nothing difficult. Yeah. I will say that when Tyler and Bob were talking about this, and they included me in all their texts. So I kept getting texts and kept getting texts. And I kept thinking, well, this might not be bad. So that's why I decided just to try a little 2-foot thing. It took me about 3 weeks to build this. It turned out okay. The most probably stunning thing to me was the way the whole layout went together in, probably less than 5 hours. And they were starting to do the test running on the trains. And, then when we left, somebody, I don't know who ran overnight. They ran all night long and went over almost the whole layout.
Mark Watson ran. We left at 9 o'clock. I think they were there till like midnight or 2 a.m. And they just kept going. They were wild.
Yeah, they were excited.
That machine shop, they actually just recently hosted a Free-moN HO setup. They this wasn't their first. It was the first N-scale setup they've had, but not the first time they've had model railroaders in there. And they're pretty flexible in, just here's the keys, have fun, don't break anything, sweep up when you're finished, and turn the lights off. Yeah.
I've got a question. How do the modules connect together?
C-clamps.
And that's good enough to be able to get the track lined up and to have it stay for the whole weekend.
Yep,
Yeah.
no problem. Some of the people use welding vice grips. But yeah, we just took C-clamps. And actually on mine, I did put dovetail grooves. I was going to use the dovetail clamps, but I'm mathematically challenged. And because I knew I was connecting to Bob's and his was 12 inches, I set my slots at 12 inches.
Oopsie.
And it should have been at 10 because it hit the outer plywood. So,
And
I just took
Terry,
some other
Terry, I can actually, when we do mine, I can show the clamps.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got a question on the connections. It seems like most of the modules of other groups you often have double tracks, and then they leave the space at the end for a filler piece to line them up. But this, it looked like most of them of an individual set of modules have a one track, which would make it easier to go run your track right to the end of your module and then line them up. Is that the way it works?
Well, but the standard also supports double track.
Well, it did that, and I gather that didn't create a problem in terms of having it exactly spaced, because that's always
No,
the
I mean,
argument that I've heard in the past. Well, they have to be able to.
you got to be careful about what you're doing. You know, it's doable.
Yeah. Okay.
And by using the clamps, there is quite a bit of leeway as to how you can tilt and even tilt a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the question I had was about when the usual modules like cars or others has double track main lines, and anyway. So yeah, it looks like it works beautifully. And
All right, looks like Terry switched to me. So this is my these are my modules. You can see all 4 of them. I am stepping around my workout exercise bike and getting in the clear again. So these are actually all oriented, they're prototype scenes, and they're actually oriented in the same orientation. So they all have north facing the same way. The only trick is to get them to fit in this room. They're reversed left to right. So, you know, the wrong end is connected on each one. So they kind of go backwards, but I'll start with Williamston, and we're facing north, and you can see it's very tree lined. My goal with this, obviously, as I talked in the clinic, I didn't have time to put in Deer Creek and the viaduct, but I absolutely intend to do that. And I think that'll really enhance how things look. But you can kind of get an idea of the track and the way it goes. So, and then here's Berkeley Road. And I made one compromise, which I regret, and that's in the northeast corner there. I had that 2-track road and the farm field curve off instead of going on the end, going across the end. And when I'm going to correct that. But the thing that I thought was funny, actually, setting aside the paint job, which I had some last minute touch up to do that didn't go very well, but setting aside that, this road is actually too smooth for Berkeley Road, and it needs to be beat up a little bit more than it is. I use kitty foam to do this road and to do the road on the McCord's Creek module, because it's easy and you can cut it out easy. But I have to play around with whether that material is going to work well enough for putting all the gouges and other patches and everything. And I need to do the stripes on the road. The other thing that didn't happen on any of my modules was I did paint the rail and the ties, but the thing that I normally do to bring everything together once the ballast is done is I do like a rust wash, you know, to get the rust, you know, seeping into the ties, and it kind of ties everything together. So that's something that's still to be done on all 4 of the modules. So, and then we go to, well, actually, I think this will be the easiest one to show the clamps. So I'm going to go down. And you can see right here, you got to like Jorgensen clamps. That's all I got to say. So these are nice, relatively cheap clamps, and they're easy to use. And, you know, especially this module, and both Oak and I built modules that didn't have legs because they were so small. That was on my advice. It probably wasn't the best idea, but, you know, we were able to make it work, and we were able to clamp these modules without legs while we were, using the clamps. And, you know, we had one of us hold the module and the other one did the clamping. I have, of course, since I live here by myself, I've actually clamped them together just on my own. So it is doable. You know, you have 2 hands. If you got 2 hands, you can do it. One hand's holding got the arm around the module, the bottom of the module, and the other hand's manipulating the clamps. It isn't pretty, but it works. And here's Maggie's farm. There's probably some things I'm going to do to Maggie's farm, so I still can't sing the Dylan song about not working on Maggie's farm. And then here's McCord's Creek. And this is one I want to make a trip out there and actually go down Snow Avenue and see what it looks like and get some prototype pictures, because this was all modeled directly from the Google images, the Google Earth images. And I feel like there's more that I can do there to make it look more real. But I feel pretty good about how it does look. And then I'm going to take a little trip around. I'll go around underneath. I'm going to go underneath Berkeley Road here. So apologize for that. And then I'll give you a view on the outside. the lighting is a little better this way.
I'm assuming, Bob, you've got connectors between the rails, between the modules,
Yeah, the
No.
Anderson. Oh,
rail connectors.
No,
No.
there's no
No.
rail joiners. They
It's just a gap. Okay.
just a gap.
yeah. Let me see if I can get the focus on this has been kind of wonky, but
It's really amazing how big of a gap the N-scale cars will negotiate.
that is absolutely true.
Well,
All right.
since I'm dealing with HON 30 and we usually have a transition piece between each module. And so there's an awful lot of gaps and places. And yeah, it does a lot of jumping around just like a narrow gauge.
Yep.
But here you can see, I mean, again, this goes down to, you got to do a good job with your track work. You can't just, slap it on and say it's all right. There was actually, I think we had one module where we had to get, that was the junction module that was connected to West Williamston here, that we had to get him to file one of his rails down a little bit because it was sticking out. Yeah, that was Ryan's module.
And that's a big problem. And that was one of the things that people were talking about is, especially if you're coming from the east and you're headed to Wyoming, you're going through the heat, your module's sitting in the back of the car, expansion joints are not a bad thing.
Yeah. And I did
And-
try to leave room for expansion on mine as well. Just thinking about that, because modules get a little more abuse than your railroad at home.
Yep. And that's probably what his problem was, sitting in the back of the car in the sunshine. It grew.
Well, and the machine shop is also not air conditioned.
No,
No.
it's not.
So with all those windows, you build your module, say in the basement where it's always 60 degrees or 65, and you now have it at 75 or 80 degrees, and it's gonna move,
Yep.
especially with new wood that hasn't dried.
And some of those modules were in the sun all morning or all afternoon.
Yep. Oh yeah. In the sunlight coming through the windows.
Yep, coming through
Yeah.
the windows. They're just getting baked.
Hey,
Does
Bob,
anybody have anything they'd like to look at before I go back and sit down?
Hey, Bob, I noticed something there. You have two different, looks like interface for digital command control. You got Digitrax and looks like you got NCE. Is that normal? Or is it all?
Mine are all the NC cab bus panels. They were using a Digitrax system for this meet, but the panels just need to be the six conductor cable and connectors without anything else hanging off them.
My
The
modules
NCE,
have Digitrax.
yeah, the NCE cab bus panel and the Digitrax cab bus panel are interchangeable. And then there's also Tony's that's, Tony's Train Exchange makes their own, and that also works.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's one subtlety, I guess, with the Digitrax panels where I guess they can connect rail to pins 1 and 6. Connect pins 1 and 6 to the rails, and then that powers the LED on the panel. But they actually had asked us to make sure those were all disconnected anyway, because they were trying
don't use that.
Yeah, they were trying to avoid, and in this big a setup, there were like 17 boosters, 17 power districts.
Yep.
And they were really trying to avoid causing themselves problems. So that was something that's a nice to have, not a necessary. So, all right, I'm going to go sit down unless anybody has anything else they want to look at underneath or on top of the layout.
That tool that you made though, for getting the track work right to the end of the module being lined up, I think that's sweet. I could see you could actually go into production of that and make them in a couple different sizes.
I'm sure I could. And once I retire, that might be something that I do.
Yeah. So
All right, Terry, let me do the unmuting because I'm going to switch from one to the other.
Participants can now unmute themselves.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
No, because
We can hear you.
I can hear
maybe
you.
you can hear me, but I can't hear you. Just give me a second. Now, can I hear myself? Yes, I can. Okay, perfect. All right, we're back. Let me start the presentation again and we can finish up. Okay, we'll take a short break and then we'll present. Okay, conclusion. What did we learn? What did we learn? We learned that sometimes a project needs to wait for its time to arrive, the Plymouth sub being one of them. I can now say, I can look, 15 years later, and I have modules in my living room that are scenic and represent prototype places on the Plymouth sub. So that part has been fulfilled. 3D printing, as Jonathan was just alluding to, 3D printing is a very useful hammer. I just threw this in there because it makes me smile. CA is a super glue. Modeling the prototype makes some things easier, scenery being one of them. I really do think that if I had to come up with scenery for these modules from whole cloth, just out of my head, it would have been harder and would have taken me longer than what I did. Because I was doing it with my iPad in one hand, and I was doing it with my iPad in one hand and, a shaker bottle of ground foam in the other hand, and going, okay, how do I make that color? How do I make that color? What's the texture on that? You can even look at things like the shadows that the different things throw to see how tall, like it looks like a bush, how tall is it? Well, how does it compare with the, with the grade crossing sign, right? With the crossbucks. So I really think prototype modeling makes scenery absolutely easier. Don't be afraid to start. It's going to be okay. Okay, so get down there, get your hands dirty. If you don't like what you did, you can change it. It's just models, just go do it. And then this one I think is probably the biggest take home for me because of the staggering amount of work I got done in an incredibly short time. I'm even stunned still. It's amazing how much you can do in a short amount of time if you focus on the tasks at hand and you pull out all the stops. You got to pull out all the stops and just go. And I was able to do that. I still don't believe it, but there it is. Oak's lesson is, model railroader. Modular railroading is a great way to try a different scale, and you can also go prototype. You want to do something different, build a Free-moN module. You want to do an HO module, you got HO equipment, or you want to buy new HO equipment, do one in HO, do it in N. Do it in whatever scale you want. You'll find people that are doing it. And last but not least, N-scale and Free-moN have arrived. Those are the take-homes I have from this. And Tyler and I have talked about this as well. So And to quote Tyler, we have arrived. And this map proves it, because this is the national map of Free-moN, and we're on the map now. Right here and right here in North Dakota, we're on the map. So how about that?
Bob, no, and that map, you've got different names. I see something Ohio.
Oops, where'd it go? Hang on, Andy, I'll go back.
Yeah, it's Central Ohio Free-moN.
Yeah, there's a Free-moN for Central Ohio, and actually those guys do a meet in May, which I suspect some, if not all of us, will be going to next year. Did you hear that, John Young? Roger understood. Okay, you got a year. No, you got less than a year. You got 9 months. Yeah, they're all over. And this represents, individuals, and it represents small groups. And I mean, these aren't clubs. This isn't a club. One of the things I really like, if you go look at the history of Free-moN that was written up by the guy who started it, you can tell he's not interested in being in a club. And that really, that appeals to me. So I like being an independent modeler, but following a standard that I can then go to a meet like this. That's the beauty of following the standard. You can take your module, you can go to a meet like this, and so long as you follow the standard, you can set your module up as part of this and be part of this event. And that's the beauty of doing that. So with that, I think I can think of no more appropriate thing, depending on your era, to have a buggy or a caboose or whatever you want to call those things at the end of the train, a Fred, or a passenger train.